Okay, we are live, but we're waiting for some people to come and join us. So if this is the Patreon exclusive Hangout Q&A, welcome. I see there's one person that is watching. I'm just going to wait for more people to come and join in if they can. I don't know how many people will actually be able to come and join us. Let me just see something really quick. If anybody is making, just 1 second. Let's see. Anybody watching yet? So still online. If anybody has any questions for me. If you guys do have any questions, do let me know. Oops. Hang on, let me fix that. So I haven't done one of these unlisted videos on YouTube before. It's one of those things where this allows me to apparently go live on YouTube, but only people that support me on Patreon can see this. So it's an interesting way to still be on YouTube, still do a Hangout, still do question and answers and all that fun stuff. But now I'm doing it with only my Patreon supporters. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to join. Feel free to join me. Feel free to join me and feel free to ask me your questions. I'm not exactly sure how this unlisted stuff works. I believe it can still work if you just click on, if you just ask me your questions in the top chat or in the live chat, whatever it's called. I think it can still work like that. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. So this is the first time I've done like an unlisted Google Hangouts or a Google video. So hopefully it works out just fine. Again, guys, this is a Google Hangout that I'm doing for my patrons. If you guys have any questions for me, if you guys want to know what I'm up to, if you guys want to know what I'm planning for the future, if you guys want to know, what kind of videos am I trying to make? Am I trying to make any new series? All of that fun stuff. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask me. So I'll let you guys know on first and foremost some of the things that I'm planning, some of the videos that I'm planning to do in the future. One of the videos that I'm trying to do is the United States Council on International Religious Freedom. It's this organization that basically talks about standing for. Yeah. So I'll give you a list, Chaitanya. Hi, how are you? I hope you're good. Thank you for joining me. So I'll give you a list of some of the videos that I'm planning to do. So one of the videos that I'm planning to do is the USCIRF, which is basically, like I just said, it's the United States Council on International Religious Freedom. So it is basically a council that is, created by the US government, which attempts to ensure that there's religious freedom across the world and religious freedom is not being curbed. But unfortunately, what happens with the USCIRF is that it is populated by people who are evangelists, radical evangelists and stuff like that. So you have this organization, you have this thing which is supposed to ensure religious freedom, but it is full of radical evangelists. So what I wanted, and how these organizations and how these radical evangelists are actually infiltrating these organizations, and they're using it to sort of further their evangelist agenda in countries like India. So I want to make a video on the sort of double standards of the USCIRF. Hi, Roshan. Thank you for joining. How are you? I hope you're good. I'm just going through a list of some of the videos that I'm trying to make. Chaitanya just asked me that. So one of the ones is that. The second one is sort of, I was reading a book by S. Rajaram. I think that's what his name is. S. Rajaram. It was a great book, and it was a book basically about how during the freedom struggle, the Congress completely gave up its goals, or put the goals of Purna Swaraj, which is complete independence. So after the partition of 1905, after the partition of Bengal, the Congress adopted a measure under Tilak, which basically was Purna Swaraj and full independence. But after Gandhi sort of gained power and Nehru sort of gained prominence in the Congress party, what happened was, they basically said, okay, we're not going to worry too much about Purna Swaraj right now. What we're going to worry about is the Khilafat movement. So we're going to focus on the Khilafat movement. We're going to focus about something that has nothing to do with India. It is something that is happening in Turkey, all the way far away. And basically how the Congress sort of after the 30s, after the 20s actually, developed this idea of not taking leadership and of compromising on India's sovereignty, compromising on India's goals and stuff like that. So I'm going to make a video on that, how Congress made India a weak state. Then I'm making another new series. So I have a series which is like Teachers of India, right? And then I have a series which is Defenders of India. I'm making a new series which is called Basics of Indian Philosophy, where I'm going to be presenting short videos, easy to understand videos, which are going to be like a primer, or just a basic introduction to some concepts, some key concepts of Indian philosophy, like what is Raj Yoga, what do the Indians believe, what do the Indians, what are the Upanishads, what are the Purans, what are the darshanas and stuff like that. So just some basic stuff, easily explained in like a 5 to 10 minute video. So that's a new thing I'm working. And then another thing that I wanted to sort of make a video on was the refugee crisis in Europe, and how there are similarities with the refugee crisis in Europe and the sort of unfettered illegal immigration that is happening in Bangladesh. And I wanted to draw some parallels there. Now, I also fully understand that there are, there's differences between how Europe perceives us and how we perceive Europe. When Indians look at Europe, we don't see animosity. We're not insecure that we see a threat in Europe. But unfortunately, a lot of right wingers in Europe and in North America see India as an ideological threat. We don't see it that way. So understanding that difference, I still think there are similarities to be drawn between what is happening in Europe today and what is happening in India today as well. So I want to make a video on that as well. So those are some of the recent videos that I'm going to be producing. Then another thing that I've been thinking about, and I want to debut this next week, is I want to debut a podcast, and I want to do this as a weekly thing. I want to make a weekly podcast where I talk about stuff that happened during the week, sort of big news stories that happened during the last week and stuff like that, and just sort of offer my thoughts on it. It's going to be a long form podcast, like an hour and a half long. Um, and I'm still figuring out whether or not I will take live questions during the live chat, or should I just take questions sort of beforehand, before I actually go and record the podcast. So that's the bit that I'm confused about. I'm leaning more towards taking questions beforehand, so it doesn't interfere necessarily with the podcast, and I can just focus on talking, focus on hitting all the points, basically. So that's what I might do. I might start a hashtag which where people can like use the hashtag and ask their questions, and I can answer their questions in the last 20 sort of minutes of the show. So that's the plan so far. Those are the things that I'm planning. I'd like to hear what you guys think about it. If you guys, Chaitanya, Roshan, if you guys had any more questions for me, do let me know. But those are some of the things that I'm planning. Next week, hopefully, I'm planning to make a video on the. That's a good question. Next week, actually, I'm planning to do a video on the sort of USAIRF. I've been waiting to. Me and I think the others would love to know the books that you've read or been reading. Okay, so I'm really interested in sort of the idea of consciousness and the idea of universal connectivity, right? That's one of the biggest concepts in Hindu philosophy, in Indian philosophy, that we are all connected at a universal level. And that is, we're connected through the Brahman. The Brahman sort of flows through all of us, and that connects us with everything in the universe. And those are things that is being proved more and more through quantum physics. Now, again, I understand that there's a large amount of skepticism revolving that oh, don't connect science to this woo-woo philosophy. I understand that, but there are these similarities which is very hard to ignore between quantum physics and sort of the theories of quantum physics and the theories postulated in Indian philosophy. So I have a lot of interest in that. So I recently read a book by Michael Pollan called How to Change Your Mind, which sort of talks about the use of psychedelics and how it creates similar responses of ego dissolution that meditation creates. And that book was basically saying that meditation is a better way to achieve those experiences. So I was reading that book. I'm reading Cosmos by Carl Sagan right now. I just finished reading this book by S. Rajaram, which was called, I have the name right here, one second. Let me pull up the name for you. It's called Distortions in History, Causes and Consequences. I think this is a book by, pretty sure it's S. Rajaram, but I'll have to double check that for you. Then I'm reading another book by Sitaram Goel, which is called Distortions in sort of in popular parlance and in Indian history. So how Indian history has been distorted first by the British and then by the leftist historians. And I've been on like this crusade of going through all the Voice of India books. So books by Shrikant Talageri, books by Sitaram Goel, books by David Frawley, and so books like that. So I'll be reading a lot more of books by those people in the future. Best example of the skepticism is Swami Nityananda. I guess you could have seen videos mocking him and calling him jokers. All Swami Nityananda was talking about was agamas and the scientific basis of it. Yeah, you're right. It's such a tricky one, because one of the books that I'm reading right now is what it has given us, basically what it was telling us, that basically what the education that we've had for the past many decades from the British, what it has done is essentially it has made us into people who never look inside. It has turned us into people who always look outside, who always look to outside for guidance, who always look to outsiders for knowledge and for intelligence. We can't gain any knowledge or insights or any guidance from us, from our own culture, because this system of education has taught us that nothing that India produces, that nothing that India has, that nothing that India has created is any good. So that's one of the big problems. So all of these people, when they're looking at these, an example is Swami Nityanand or Rajiv Malhotra or people like that. When they're looking at people like that, they're saying, "Oh, you're Indian. You're from India. Your knowledge is based on Indian philosophy. So what knowledge is that? What good is that? Your knowledge is not based on Western rationalism. Your knowledge is not based on Western philosophy." So yeah, it's unfortunate that there's a population of people that in India that have been completely programmed to look outside for guidance and look outside for help and stuff like that. Material proof or three-dimensional proof is what so-called modern education is about. Yes, that's true, but there's also, an experience that a person can have, right? And this is not, when people in India talk about the experience that you can have, experiencing Brahman, experiencing God, so to say, that experience is not some padri or some father in a church telling you. That is not some Maulvi telling you that this is an experience, this happened, like it happens in Abrahamic civilizations. In Indian civilization, that experience you gain yourself. That experience is had personally, on a personal level, yourself. So I can't understand why that is not called rational and that is not called empirical when you are having that experience yourself. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think it's sad that we have people that always look outside for guidance. That is why, Indian politics, if you've noticed Indian politics, one of the big things about Indian politics is people don't throw their hat in the ring and to become leaders. All the people that have studied in these great uh, colleges and in these great private schools and in these English medium convent schools, those people don't become leaders. Those people become followers. British education and this English system of education has trained us to create followers. They haven't trained us to create leaders, right? Where do the leaders come from? Leaders come from Hindi medium. Leaders come from local medium schools. You see Mayawati, you see Lalu Yadav, you see Mulayam Yadav, you see, all these leaders from across the country. You might not like them. I don't like most of those people. You might not like those people, but the important thing to remember, none of these people are from these fancy English mediums. Narendra Modi, none of these people are from these fancy English medium schools. These people are sons of the soil, daughters of the soil. These people are grassroots people. These people went to their local Hindi medium or whatever local regional language medium schools. So the regional language medium schools that are considered bad or that are considered lower quality, these schools and these places are what is creating real true leaders. So I think that's such an indictment of modern English language education in India. I think it does not produce leaders; it produces followers. But that's just my observation. Maybe I'm overgeneralizing too much, but that's one of the things that I've recently noticed. And that's something, again, this is not my original observation. This is people have talked about this before as well. Science is about universal proof and not about personal proof or belief. As long as science can prove any concepts as universal and via material science, he would dismiss anything as personal proof. Yes. I would agree with that as well, in terms of scientific proof. If you're trying to utilize something in science, it needs to be universally available. But then that's what I'm talking about as well, kind of, that these experiences that people are having through meditation, when you're meditating for a long period of time, you're having these experiences. You're having these experiences of the dissolution of your ego. You're having these experiences of the feeling of connectedness with everything. You're having these experiences of feeling oneness within the universe, feeling that you are basically one with everything else that is present in the universe. So there are some very common feelings or very common experiences that people are having when they are meditating regularly for a long period of time. So you can't say that this is not scientific. Meditation, and which is now in the West called mindfulness, is widely accepted as a strong scientific practice for mindfulness and scientific practice for making your brain better, right? So when you're, yeah, so basically when you're saying that, okay, we will accept mindfulness, we will accept meditation as this great scientific thing, as this great thing for the brain and for the mind, but we will not accept the philosophy behind it at all. So that doesn't quite make sense. Yeah, what was personal proof becomes universal once it's been true for all, but spirituality is mostly personal. It is mostly personal, but again, the experiences that people have, that 80% of the time, 85% of the time, the experiences that people are having are very common. So there is that universality to that as well. There's that universality to that proof as well. Like, okay, I'm meditating, then if I'm meditating seriously, regularly for an extended period of time, then I'm having these experiences which other people are having who are meditating for a long period of time as well. So there is still that universality to it, right? So even going by Neil deGrasse Tyson's definition of this universal proof and how science needs to be this universal thing, there is still that universality to Indian concepts and Indian spirituality and Indian, particularly meditation and Raj Yoga, which people say, there is that universal experience connected with Raj Yoga, which is one of the most integral concepts of Indian philosophy. So I mean, it's even according to that definition, we're good, you know? So yeah, so I see there's still only two people. So I think a lot of people were not able to join us today, which is okay, I guess. This is the first time that I've done a Patreon hangout and a Patreon Q&A. So I am hoping that by the time the next Patreon Q&A swings around, I'll actually announce the next Patreon Q&A that happens. So I'll probably do one in November next time. So when I do the next Patreon Q&A in November, I'm thinking that I will probably announce it on social media, announce it on Twitter, announce it on Facebook, announce it on Instagram. Because I think once I've done that, more people will be able to probably join. I think what I did this time around is only shared it on Patreon because I thought it is only for the patrons. So I only shared it on Patreon, but I'll share it on the other platforms as well for the next live Q&A, just so the people that support me on Patreon can know that, okay, the Sham's doing this Q&A, and let's go join him when he does that. So next time I'll announce it. Um, yeah, I'm gonna wait another, 10, 15 minutes to see if people join, if any other people join, and if any other people have any questions. But if you guys, people that are watching right now, the two of you, if you guys have any questions regarding the show, if you guys have any questions regarding any suggestions that you want to make to me for the show, you can do that as well. I think I already sort of outlined the things that I'm planning over the next few weeks, the sort of videos that I'm going to be making. So if you have any questions for me, fire away on in terms of the show. You can go ahead and ask me right now. So again, yeah, I'm gonna wait about. Well, we've waited about 30 minutes and nobody's really showed up. I mean, not nobody. I mean, more people haven't showed up, but I'm going to wait another, say, 30 minutes. Oh, sorry, another 5 minutes. I'm going to wait till like it's 9 o'clock in the morning here, and then we can call it a day for that. So yeah, again, if you have any questions with regards to the show, you can let me know. I had somebody. Are you planning a collaboration with Aaj Ki Taza Khabar? Yes, I am. I'm actually going to be calling them today. Right after I'm done with this hangout, I'm actually going to be calling them today, and I'm actually going to be setting up a podcast episode with them. So I'm going to be inviting them over to my show, and I'm going to be doing a podcast episode with them as well. And we're just going to talk about some of the issues that are coming up, about the 2019 elections, about how the sort of dharmic minded, Indic minded portals, excuse me, some of the dharmic minded, Indic minded portals can collaborate on YouTube. So I'm going to be calling them. I'm going to be setting up a call with them this today, and then hopefully on Sunday, Sunday morning here in the US, Sunday evening in India. Hopefully, I'll get them on my show, and we'll do a live chat, and I'll produce a podcast out of it. So yeah, definitely planning a collaboration with Aaj Ki Taza Khabar, planning a collaboration with FMF as well. Hopefully that materializes in the future. Yes, yes, you did. Different temples in the case of Sabarimala. Yeah, definitely. So with the looks like that is the need nowadays with all the misinformation going on. You're right. So what's happening that with the podcast, I'm gonna be taking suggestions. So like the Sabarimala issue, for example. So that's something that I can sort of explore long form in the podcast. So I might take that up on the podcast. So I'm launching the podcast on Thursday next week. So I might actually tackle the Sabarimala issue in that as well. I'll do the Sabarimala issue, and I'll also sort of tackle some of the big news things that happened during the week that week. So essentially, yeah. So I'm gonna do that. It's gonna be like it's gonna be like 40. It's gonna be like an hour of me tackling news, tackling issues that people on Patreon suggested, talking about that. And it's going to be then after 1 hour, it's going to be like 15 minutes of questions that people might have for me, or people might have regarding the stuff that I'm going to be talking about. So yeah. So I'll join in the I'll actually bring up and talk about Sabrimala a little bit in that Thursday podcast. Right. So it's almost 9 o'clock. This time around, I don't think a lot of people joined, but I still want to thank Roshan and Chaitanya for joining. What I'm going to do next time. So let's do another one of these in, let's say, November. When we do it in November, what I want to do next time is I'll put it up on social media. I'll put it up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the fun stuff, and I'll talk about it on YouTube as well. And before I do it in one of my videos. That's actually a great idea, Roshan. So I will share some details about Hindu videos and content creators in Kerala, they're in Malayalam. That'll be a great idea. If you can connect me to some content creators from Kerala that talk about Hindu issues and issues that are happening in Kerala, that'll be fantastic. I'd love to talk to them. I'm sure if they can communicate with me in English, no problem. We'll do the show in English. I'd love to sort of bring them on the show and just discuss with them like what's going on in Kerala and stuff like that. So that's a great idea. So thank you for that. And if you know any people, yeah, make sure to connect them to me. I'd love to talk to them. Okay, so next time we'll do this on same day in November. 1 month from now, same day in November, we'll do another one of these, and I'll announce it beforehand so more people can hopefully come and join in. Again, thank you very much for joining me on this Patreon hangout, Roshan and Chaitanya. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the comments. What we're going to, and again, I appreciate the support that you guys give me on Patreon. That's the biggest deal for me, So I really, really do appreciate that. Okay, so I'm gonna be putting out more stuff on Patreon for you guys as well. More polls. I'm producing right now. I'm working on the Teachers a Video episode for I'm still waiting another couple of days. I'm doing a bit of research on both. I'm still waiting another couple of days for the polls to finish. Right now, Sushrut is in the lead, I believe, with like 8 votes to 7. But yeah, so once that vote finishes, I'll start working on the Teachers of India episode, and I'll put in another poll for you guys to sort of vote on as well. And the podcast will be launching soon. And keep an eye out for the podcast that I do with Aaj Ki Taza Khabar. So lots of fun stuff coming up. I hope you will come and watch. All right, guys, I will take your leave now. And let's do this again next month. I like talking to my patrons. I want to talk to my patrons as much as possible. I want to take your advice. I want to take your suggestions. I want to take your criticisms, whatever you might have for me. I want to take it on board and incorporate it into the show. I want you guys to be part of the creative force behind this show. So again, thank you very much for joining. Let's do this again next month. And fun talking to you guys. All right. Bye-bye and namaskar.